When a software or hardware product reaches its end of life or end of service, EOL for end of life, EOS for end of service, it's no longer supported by the manufacturer. This can be a cause of concern for organizations like yours because unsupported technologies have no routine internal security measures or support from the manufacturer. The good news is that there are steps you can take to mitigate the risks that come with EOL software or hardware and protect your business. And I'll be discussing some of those today. Hello, I'm Michael Kinnett, CEO and founder of Eternal Networks. And every Friday at 1 p.m. Pacific, I go live on social media to discuss the latest tech and cyberspace news that might affect you and your business. At the end of my live session, I'll make sure to leave some time to answer any questions from the audience. So if you've got any business, technology, cybersecurity, any questions, just get them ready. I'll make sure to have some time to go over those at the end. First, in the news, a couple of important ones here. You may have heard about some of this, but there's an emergency update available for Apple iPhones. Actually, I think it's for all of Apple software, but specifically for iPhones to patch a couple of zero-day vulnerabilities that were recently discovered. And these are pretty bad bugs in the iOS operating system. These vulnerabilities allow attackers to infect a fully patched iPhone without any interaction from the victim. All they have to do is send an iMessage message containing image attachments, malicious image attachments that are configured in a certain way that allow those attackers that send that to compromise the iPhone without the recipient or the victim doing anything. Just by receiving those messages on their phone, they can now be infected with malicious software and other things. So if you have an iPhone, update as soon as possible. Make sure that you're patched if you use one personally, especially if you use one in your business environment with your employees. Make sure that you have methods in place to get those phones, iPads, etc., updated as soon as possible. Next in the news, CISA, which is the United States Cybersecurity and Infrastructure Security Agency, they've added a couple of critical severity vulnerabilities to their list for Apache servers that are being actively exploited. It's specific to the Apache RocketMQ distributed messaging and streaming platform. So not every Apache product is affected, but Apache is one of the most popular, if not the most popular, web hosting platform on the back end. So it's very, very popular in a lot of business environments. And exploiting the vulnerability can be done without any authentication. So they don't even need a username and password, and the threat actors are able to just find these servers online and then gain access and deploy cryptocurrency miners and other malicious software. They've been known to attack this vulnerability since at least June. And an update was just released for this as well to patch the vulnerability and should be immediately installed. CISA said that there's 5 known threat actors that are exploiting this in the wild. They're scanning the internet, scanning servers from the outside, finding which servers have this, and then they're exploiting and deploying these crypto mining botnets and other malicious software. So if you or your organization uses these Apache servers, make sure you get those patched and updated as soon as possible as well. Now for our main discussion, what to do when you've got hardware or software that's expired, that's end of life or end of service. What we want to do is I'm going to provide. There's lots of steps that I could provide, or different things to consider for this, but I'm really only going to cover the 4 that I consider the most impactful to go over. So I'm just going to dig right in here. Number 1 is related to security. That should be no surprise, as every week I'm talking about security and the importance of security. Organizations need to prioritize security immediately after identifying end-of-life software or hardware. You need to make sure that you're working with a reputable vendor who can provide essential security protocols and tools to keep your data safe. Make sure that you have a plan created to keep any potential security risks at minimum. So some things that might include, maybe that includes adding some additional security measures such as 2-factor authentication or increased monitoring by high-risk areas. By taking these precautions, you can ensure your organization's data is protected against threats. And I can give you a specific example about this. I know in the printing industry, there are many large format machines that utilize outdated operating systems or outdated software in order to do prints and to do all these large production runs and different things. And it's not feasible for those companies to update them to the latest operating system because they have to upgrade the entire machine, everything. And so if there's a specific software machine that is end of life, end of service, what you can do is you can put additional security measures in to make sure that those machines can't communicate to the internet, they can't communicate with other computers. There's definitely things that can be done to put in place to isolate those and to minimize that risk of any security threats because they're outdated. And it's important that you take that in consideration when you plan. Next, it relates to productivity. As your software hardware nears the end of its life, sometimes it can affect productivity. So it's crucial to measure the productivity so your organization doesn't suffer. Here's a few things that you can do to minimize any negative impact of productivity for your organization. You can keep track of the software's performance, which will help you identify if that performance decreases. You can ensure your employees who use it are aware of its stats. Make sure that they know that hey, this is outdated, so they can be more receptive if there's problems. They can be more aware of that and report those issues if they come up. And then have a contingency plan in case the software or hardware does completely fail. Last thing you want to do is have a major disruption to your organization. And so having a backup plan or something else when you know that you're utilizing some hardware or software that's aged, that may have some problems, have a backup plan so that you're not completely dead in the water. Number 3, plan for your long-term needs and evaluate them. When planning for the future, it's always critical to consider the viability of your essential systems. What are your objectives? Which systems are crucial to achieving those objectives? And then you can evaluate the risk of using any end-of-life systems as a vital step on deciding whether or not to upgrade. Plan long-term and plan for when you're going to need to upgrade. And the sooner you do that, the easier it's going to be to budget and plan for those things. Consider what are the consequences of continuing to use the outdated system? What are the chances that those consequences will happen, and how severe would they be? Take all those factors into consideration can assist you in making the best decision for your organization, so you have the right systems in place to support your long-term goals. And then 4, if you do decide that, hey, it's time to move on from an end-of-life system, and that could be once it becomes end-of-life, that could be down the road, if you've planned properly to mitigate security risks and do other things. But at some point in time, these end-of-life systems will need to be replaced. And so it's important that you test compatibility before migration. The end of life date for a system can be months or years in the future, and planning for migration should begin well before the date of the migration or the date that you need to get rid of that equipment or software. By doing so, you can avoid any disruption that might occur during the migration process. Testing compatibility is one of the first steps in migrating to a new system to ensure that all of your data, your applications can all be transferred over to the new system. There's not going to be any disruptions in your workflow. Set up a test environment, run some tests in the best way possible to accomplish this. And those different scenarios, right, depending on what the type of system is, what the type of software is, if you're talking about a large piece of your operation, then, probably some longer planning and longer testing is necessary over just maybe one piece of software. So those are all some things to consider when you're looking at end-of-life software, end-of-life hardware that maybe is been in your business in use for quite some time as you're considering whether to replace it or not. As I've discussed, the risks posed by end-of-life and end-of-service software and hardware are definitely real, but you don't have to face that alone, right? That's where an IT service provider like us can step in. We can have conversations with you. We can plan proactively, making sure that you're protected against those dangers of end-of-life and end-of-service software and hardware so that it doesn't completely overwhelm you. So if you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out, message me, let me know. I'd love to help out however we can. Let's see. I don't see any live comments or questions on there. So if anybody does have any questions, feel free to message me, direct message me. You can reach us on our website. I do want to also remind you, we do have an upcoming webinar related to today's topic. We're going to be talking more in depth about end-of-service technology. I went over some of the practical steps today. I'm going to go in much more depth, cover much more detail on those steps and much more in the webinar in 2 weeks. So I'll be discussing not only how to plan for end-of-life service, but also why it's important. We want to make sure that you understand the risks so that you're not letting hackers exploit your outdated technology. So please join us September 21st, 1 p.m. Pacific time, as we talk about the importance of supported technology. And it's free. We never charge for that. It's completely free education webinar. We want to try to educate and help increase the cyber resilience of businesses in the state of Nevada. So I'll make sure that there's a link for you to join us on that in the comments. Thanks for joining today. Those that watch this after the fact, thanks for watching. If you have any other questions that you'd like me to cover on a future thing, maybe you heard something in the news, maybe you heard something at work, I'd love to hear about it. I'd love to know what's on your mind, what concerns you and your business here in the state of Nevada, so I can help educate and inform. So you can direct message me, email me, go to our website, itnet.works. Love to hear from you. Hope you have a wonderful weekend, and we'll see you next week.